Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today lived most of her life in Pennsylvania, where she admittedly wrote mostly terrible short stories while working, pursuing an undergraduate degree, and raising her son. When she moved to Colorado, she gained recognition as a local playwright. Calico Lane, her memoir, was launched in January 2022 and later that year won the Best Indie Book Award in the LGBTQ Memoir category. When not writing, she's reading mysteries and memoirs or watching psychological thrillers, but she never shares her popcorn. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Judy Kiehart.
Thank you, Julia. Happy to be here.
Judy, our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, what took you so long to write your first book?
Yeah, I think, Julia, with memoirs, especially if they're, a little bit of a touchy subject, you're kind of thinking your book over in your head for a long time. I was thinking of this story probably for 20 years before I even wrote the fictional short story. And after that short story went out, several people in my writing group said, this kind of sounds like a true story. This kind of sounds really true. Is it true? And I was embarrassed because it was, and I was trying to hide the truth. So then it took me almost another 20 years before I sat down to actually write the story. And I think it took me so long because of the way I was raised. Shame was a big thing in our household. My parents were first generation Americans, and they had very strict religious beliefs. They followed Russian Orthodoxy, which was pretty strict. And shame is a big thing, and you don't shame your family. And I never came out to my dad, and my mom was 92 when I finally came out to her. She was pretty much on her deathbed, and I came out to her. And I still hadn't written the book. I waited until she had passed, and then I sat down and seriously thought about how to structure it and how to write it. But I think it took me so long because my parents lived long, and I just didn't want to embarrass them or hurt them. And now that the book is out, of course, I get a lot of statements from people. Oh, your mom would roll over in her grave, or your dad would, roll over in his grave. And I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. They're not aware of it, And I'm just glad that the story is out. And it took me that long because it just took me that long.
Well, I grew up in those days, and shame was used for a lot of things, not just coming out. So a lot of us were shamed for different reasons, and families and memoirs and family secrets don't always, please the people who are left behind, or maybe those that go before, but it's your truth and you have to tell it.
Yeah, that's right. I felt like I lied and pretended all my life. And when I wrote the book, it wasn't really in mind to sell a whole lot of copies and become famous. That isn't the reason I wrote the book. I wrote the book for people who knew me and who I pretended, to be somebody else in their company. And I just wanted to put it out there and let people know why. And this was really me, and this is what I was going through. So it was quite emotional to put all that out there.
I don't think anything makes us more emotional than our childhood and our parents and all of that guilt that we carry. So I think you were very brave to do so, and I look forward to reading your book. Once you wrote the book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent, decide to choose a hybrid, a small press, or did you self-publish?
Well, the best way to answer that question is how much money did you have as a resource? And I was on a very shoestring budget. It was during COVID, and my writing group was very good with beta reading for me. And they told me, oh, you can get an agent. You should be able to get an agent. So I took a course. It was a 6-month course in how to do a book proposal, how to query agents, and I queried about 75 agents, and one of them asked to read sections of the book. But then after she read it, basically she said, without a social platform, she couldn't market it. And that was when I decided, well, I don't have a social platform, and maybe one will build in time, but that's not me. I'm 68 when the book came out. I wasn't into that kind of stuff, but I did have a web page. I did have a website, and I had some short stories and little posts on there that were getting some recognition. So through my website, I started talking about my book coming out, and I just started researching how to do it myself. I have a friend who's a very good editor. She helped me edit, and my son helped with the cover. And beta readers gave me ideas on how to change things around. But I basically did it all by myself. I formatted up to KDP and did all that just by learning, and it took a long time. It took probably a year from beginning to end before it was edited and launched.
Memoir is can be just snippets of time in our lives. It's not an autobiography. So, how did you decide which snippets of time to feature in your memoir?
Yeah, that was tough. I did want to include some of my history with my family. So, but I ended up at the end, really chopping a lot of that out, because in the beginning I had every uncle named, every aunt named, and it's like, what am I doing? So, through a lot of editing with my friends, we got rid of a lot of that, and I even combined some characteristics of people to just make one person, kind of, just to get the story moving in the direction I wanted it to move. But I knew I wanted the main arc to be my journey to understanding who I was and accepting who I was. Um, I wrote some a little bit about my marriage, but I didn't want the story. It was a volatile marriage, and I didn't want the story to be about abuse or about the marriage. So that was just kind of in there, just to say I was married at one point, and to give kind of a basis for the reader to see that how I lied and how I pretended my way through life because I just didn't know how not to do it, you know, um, and how I just hid who I was. So I captured highlights. I think, like you said, you just kind of pick the snippets that really kind of form together to give your story. Um, and one of the themes was my first girlfriend, who I had when I was 17, and it was a 2-year relationship. So my book starts out with her funeral, and then throughout the book, more is added to that first snippet to give it a full picture. And I think that really helps the reader see, wow, they could see the arc of my life, and how I made the decisions I made and why I made them and why I finally came out. So, yeah, it was a memoir. They say is best if it's just one item, one theme. But it's not necessarily the case for everybody.
Well, everybody likes to write, but not everybody likes to promote. And we have problems with promoting ourselves and receiving publicity for our books. Have you found anything that's worked to help promote your book?
Well, I've done monthly posts that I have an email list for, and I ask people to share it with their friends. How many do? I don't know. I don't have a large social platform, and I'm not selling thousands of books, but I like to go to groups. I like to do pride events. I like to talk to PFLAG groups, older SAG groups, SAGE groups. So I do best with pride groups because they're people I could really relate to. Um, I also talk to just general public at book events, um, and I could. I'm always surprised. I'm always amazed at the people who turn out for events and then approach me and say, "Wow, um, my friend was gay in school, and I kept a secret, and I didn't realize all of what you go through to keep a secret." And so many people come out to me and talk to me about their experience. And I think that's what it's all about. The more people we can get talking about how our lives were and those who record them, then it's going to be easier and better for the future generations.
I think that's been my favorite part of writing my first book is that I heard from, I'm an adopted child from a maternity home and back in the 50s. And I hear from so many adoptees, other adoptees, and adoptive parents and birth parents. And, they all reach out to me with their stories. So I always think that's so wonderful that our work has touched somebody else and that we can have a conversation about it.
Especially people that you don't know. Friends that have read the book have been surprised and very supportive. But it's the people that you don't know because they just picked the book up because somebody told them they should read it, or they just, I don't know, it was free or something. It was at the library, who knows? But they just read it, and then they have a comment or two, and they get so involved with talking about their life or somebody they knew, and that's the kick. That's the hoot is having someone come up to you or email you. I get lots of emails, and people will say, I read the book, and what did you mean when you said this in this chapter, and did you really feel that way? And so yeah, I really felt that way. And, so it's always a thrill to get that kind of email.
I agree. Are there any specific books or seminars or writing retreats or groups that you can share that improved your writing journey? I know that class and learning how to self-publish had to have been quite a learning curve.
It was a huge learning curve, and it was a very humbling experience to put your book out there and put it in front of agents and know, what, they are the agent, they are the all powerful, will do it or will not do it for you. And that was a humbling experience. I think my best learning and support was always from local writing groups. When I lived in Pennsylvania, 40 years ago, I was involved in writing groups. 50 years ago, I was always made sure I had a group that I could go to for support and critiques. And even here in Washington State, got connected with a really great group of local writers, and they're the ones that really got me on my start for the memoir. They're the ones who encouraged me and supported me right through the process. And even promoting now, we promote each other's books at events, and the fairs and the book events, the library events. We try to promote each other's books, and you do what you can. I'm on a shoestring budget. I don't have money for a publicist, I'm not going to take out half-page ads in magazines. It's just not going to happen, But if somebody listens to the podcast and reads the book, great. I'm all happy about that.
Well, let's talk more about the passages that you've brought to share today, and then let you read so that we can hear your tone and voice in the book. Set up the scene for us.
Well, the scene is the opening scene in the book. The first chapter is called Choices. And in this scene, there are several characters that will eventually come in the story about halfway through the book and then continue for the rest of the book. But this opening chapter, it just kind of I hope, sets the tone for my feelings, will help the reader see my confusions, my guilt. So that's kind of the reason for this opening chapter. In the very beginning of my drafting of the chapters, this was not the opening chapter. I had started it totally different, and my writers group said, it's just not pulling me in. You got to get something in there. And that's when I decided to start with this passage that I selected to read, and then bring that out again several times as the story goes on through the book. Give it more and more depth every time it's brought out. So we'll see how you feel about it. All right. Okay, so it's called Choices. February 1972. No one wanted to be here. Icy rain drummed on the car's roof as wiper blades scraped the windshield. The morning's weather reflected Punxsutawney Phil's forecast. No surprise. Over the years, the groundhog's predictions for longer winters outnumbered the earlier springs in northeastern Pennsylvania. Heat blasted through the car vents. Odors of stale beer, cigarette smoke, and the pine tree air freshener blended with a powerful floral scent. Prince Machiavelli's wind song was more than I could handle, but Pam dabbed it behind her ears for Karen. I unbuttoned my coat. Can we open a window or something? From her shotgun seat, Pam stroked my thigh. It'll be okay, Judy. You're upset. Her manicured hand rested on my right knee. For a moment, it felt as though its heat would leave an imprint on my pants. She handed me the wrapped weed and mumbled, Will this day ever end? Karen drove, with me crammed between her and Pam. Tears welled behind my glasses. My temples throbbed and my headache worsened with every mile. Not enough caffeine. I hate funerals, Karen muttered, cranking her window down part way. The girls in the back seat squealed as the sudden rush of frigid air engulfed them. Karen continued, No funeral service. When I die, just float me down the Lackawanna. I suppose you'll want singing as your butt floats through town, Pam joked. Yeah, Spirit in the Sky. Sing that one, Karen chuckled. None of this makes sense, I said, taking a shallow pull and coaxing the sweet marijuana into my lungs. For the last several days since Karen's call, I had been in a haze, a wintry fog, and the clouds weren't lifting. A backseat passenger tapped my shoulder and wiggled her fingers. She asked, Did you ever think that Valerie is better off dead? I handed the joint over my head and sniffled. That's cruel, I said, pulling a tissue from my pocket. No one mentions today is my 19th birthday, but that isn't the reason for my gloomy mood or the lump in my throat. The same voice continued. Well, I'm just saying it's not easy living like this. The lying, the pretending. Sometimes I wish I would rather be dead. Enough, no more, Pam interrupted. We'll get through this together. First, we're going to do right by Valerie. At the cemetery, we unfolded from the not-so-new red Pontiac convertible, Karen's gift to herself when she graduated high school. She linked my arm as we led the group, crunching through the frozen grass. The two girls from the back seat lagged to finish the joint with Pam. Fresh, crisp air entered my lungs. The headache disappeared. Karen pulled a Lucky Strike package from her raincoat pocket. I unhooked my arm from hers, drawing my icy hands into the sleeves of my peacoat. My slim, brown-eyed friend lit her cigarette, exhaled smoke in my direction, and winked. Blue jeans and cowboy boots showed below Karen's dark green slicker, her dark blue knit cap pulled forward. covering her eyebrows. Pam wore fake leopard skin boots and a plaid wool skirt, and 2 layers of sweaters under a red wool poncho. The other two wore matching jeans, denim jackets, and high-top Converse sneakers. We had dressed as if we were attending 4 separate events. The sleet pelted our heads. As the cold seeped through the soles of my slush-covered loafers, I recalled my parents' wardrobe suggestions for boots and a scarf. That would have been wise if I hadn't been so argumentative. I paused, gazing into the wintry fog at the edge of the cemetery. Karen's tug on my peacoat brought me back. You okay? She asked. I nodded. We walked toward the small group of mourners. Did I appear innocent or guilty? The pastor uttered phrases without glancing at the prayer book in his hands. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. He could not have sounded more unemotional. As the crowd sang Amazing Grace, Karen placed her arm around my waist. Pam leaned forward and wrapped her arms around us, her breath warm and soothing against my neck. We huddled together as the wind ruffled Pam's hair. It tickled my ear as if someone teased me with a feather. Amen. The pastor's eyes locked with mine. Does a man of the cloth have the power to measure guilt? My teary eyes followed the simple casket vanishing into the hole. It seemed like events were happening in slow motion, and then it was over. Karen and I shuffled toward the white tent and stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the grief-stricken parents. Will they see through me? The bereaved woman's lightweight dress, unanchored by her open coat, stirred with the wind. To her left stood a rigid man with gel-coated silver hair and an unreadable expression on his smooth-shaven face. We're sorry. So sorry about Valerie. Karen addressed the couple burying their daughter. I couldn't talk. I could barely breathe. Was it genuine sorrow, or was I angered that this death might force me onto the path that was easiest for everyone, but the most difficult for me? Valerie's mother had no idea I may have been the last person to see her daughter alive. How would she respond if she knew about me, if she knew about us? My mouth hung open and my breath steamed out. Should I live a life acceptable to my family, or could I be true to myself without Valerie? I didn't want a choice. I wanted both.
So poignant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Judy, do you have any other books in you?
I'd like to think I do. I've thought of some ideas, but right now I'm deep into playwriting. My play Leon is going to be put on for the holiday season here in Olympia. It's going to be done by a readers theater, so this should be fun. And I have a couple other plays getting ready to send out to see if I could get them staged. So I'm kind of in that role right now. I think I'm going to put my novel thinking on the back burner, at least till after the holidays.
Would you write the screenplay for your novel?
Wow. Yeah. And I'm waiting for Ron Howard to give me that call. Wouldn't that be something? I think the novel, has some potential, but it needs to get out there. And do I have the means to do that or the wherewithal? Maybe in time it'll happen. We'll see how things go.
What does writing success look like to you personally?
If you're happy while you're doing it, it's got to be fun. You have to want to do the research. You have to want to learn, show from tell. You have to want to learn what you have to learn. I wasn't schooled in writing. I never even took a writing class until I was way into my 30s and 40s. You have to really, I just think, want to write and just keep writing and keep enjoying it and having fun. And that's why I said I'm putting the novel idea on the back burner, because I'm having so much fun with the plays right now. And the area that we're in, Olympia, Washington, has a large gathering of playwrights. There's a lot of talented writers out here. And to get your foot in the door is it takes a little bit of work. So I'm just hoping that maybe Leon will be a little bit successful and people will recognize me and maybe want me to write with them or for them or something like that.
Is it difficult to switch back and forth between playwriting and writing in longer formats? Because I took a class in script writing, thinking that I could do my own script, but it's very difficult not to have the interiority that you can have in novels.
Yeah, I don't have too much trouble switching back and forth, but um, I'm not an expert. You know, I'm really down there on the level, playing field. I learn a lot by watching and listening and going to plays, and I have ideas, but it's getting them developed. And screenwriting is a lot more involved than playwriting. With playwriting, all you need to do is get the dialogue in. And if the dialogue can carry the story, then the director will do everything else. I don't have to put in, pick up the coffee cup with your left hand. I don't have to do any of the stage directing or any of that. All I need to do is have the dialogue flow enough to carry a story. If Calico Lane were ever going to make it into a screenwriting situation, there's always Hollywood is going to have their hand in it. There's going to have to be something that's going to be dramatic enough to make Hollywood say, okay, this is good. So, you need an awesome screenwriter, I think. And I don't think that would be me, although I might have ideas and maybe they would let me help.
That's funny because a screenwriter told me about my novel that Hollywood would want to sex it up. And I said, well, in my novel, I have 3 young women who have become pregnant. There's sex in the novel. and they said, no, we really mean sex it up. So I said, oh, well, okay, this is going to be very interesting.
Right. And if a movie is coming from a book, let's take Calico Lane, for instance, there's implications of sex happening, but I don't write an erotic book. It's not an erotic book. It's not about the sex. It's about the emotions. So, but I know Hollywood would want to ramp that up. I'm sure there would be scenes in there that would make my hair curl. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because all of my scenes are fade to black.
Maybe some music in the background. Hey, but I'd be willing, again, Ron Howard, I'll put my email out there, Ron. Just give me a call. I'm all yours.
Exactly right. Because he does such a wonderful job.
Doesn't he? Yeah.
Well, Judy, as always, our last interview question is our writers over 50 are quite a unique set. Do you have any advice for writers 50 and above?
Keep writing. Just don't stop. If you're new, if you haven't picked up a pen or you haven't started writing until now, like you're 50, 60, that's fine. Just write your story. I think all stories are worth telling, and some maybe will never go to book format, but many people have written their story down and have gone through getting it, a nice paper with a nice cover in a binder, and they're passing it down to their family, to their grandkids. Um, if you've got a story to tell, just tell it. And if you don't think it's long enough for a novel, then write a short story. And if you're good with dialogue, write a play. Um, just sit down and write a play. It's really not that hard if you know the basics, and you can pick that up on YouTube and any book anywhere in the bookstores. But yeah, just keep on writing. Don't give up, or don't think you're too old, because you're not. What, 70 is the new what, 50? I don't feel that, but yeah, that's what they say.
You're exactly right. And I think that's grand advice for us today because I'm interviewing people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are writing beautiful work. And so I think we can do it for the rest of our lives. And we may have lots of other stories in us to tell. So we just appreciate your being with us here today and sharing about your book and your life. And we're happy to count you among our authors over 50.
Thank you, Julia. It was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's D-A-I-L-Y, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.